People in the Midwest have been waking up to temperatures of 20, 30, or close to 40 below zero. And that's without any wind chill.
That's right. And now the cold wave is heading toward the East Coast. Reporter Paul Strand has the story.
Brutal winds, swirling snow, and slippery ice have assaulted the Midwest, bringing bone-chilling record-low temperatures to states like North Dakota, 29 below in Fargo, 37 below in Grand Forks. At least one man's died from exposure, and more of this deadly cold is on the way.
We're going to see a big swath of snow come through, and it's not just the snow.
It's the brutal cold, which can actually kill you.
The danger becomes frostbite and hypothermia, and this can occur very quickly. 2 to 3 minutes if you're not well dressed.
I got a sweatshirt or a long john shirt or a sweatshirt and a t-shirt.
These Iowa construction workers have mastered the art of cold weather survival.
As long as you stay moving and you dress in layers, I'm warm.
Now the bitter blasts of below freezing temperatures are hitting the East Coast, with more to come.
It's been years since they've hit the 0-degree mark in New York City, and we think that's going to happen on Friday night.
Back in the Midwest, this winter's snow and ice have already become annoyingly commonplace.
We had like 28 times that we plowed and salted snow between December and beginning of January.
Many just take it in stride.
Living in the Midwest, you always know you're going to get snow, and it's just part of it, so you have to deal with it.
As for dealing with the record cold, as one Minnesota man put it, minus 38 doesn't really feel all that much different from minus 24. Paul Strand, CBN News.
38 minus 24. You know, Terry, I was seeing a feature on PBS last night about the Norwegian explorer who, found the Northwest Passage. And he dealt with the Inuits, and the Inuits thought that fur was the answer, and they used caribou fur, which has a lot of little air pockets in it. And they kept wonderfully warm in minus 40, minus 50 degrees.
I know that there are lots of people who don't like people making coats and jackets and things out of animal skins, but the truth is the wind doesn't blow through it like it does through a regular fabric-made coat.
When I was in the Marines, they had, the whole concept was air, and so they had these sweaters that were sort of lattice work, that you could wear underneath a garment, and it's the air in there that's the best insulator you can have. But folks, whatever it is, stay home. Don't go out in this cold. There's no sense in jeopardizing yourself, and I think if you don't have to drive, don't drive. But we here...
Just tell your employer Pat sent you. Or didn't send you, just in case, maybe.
Whatever it is, tell them you're going to do it at home. Well, Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Pat, a new audio tape supposedly from Osama bin Laden calls on Muslims to launch a jihad to stop Israel's military action in Gaza. Israel's political leaders still haven't decided whether to push for a ceasefire or expand their military operation. But as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, they do agree that something had to be done about Hamas.
Israel's security cabinet has not met for several days, prompting speculation that Prime Minister Ehud Olmert and his top ministers don't agree on whether to launch a highly intensive third phase of the attack on Hamas. Olmert is said to favor tougher military action, while Defense Minister Ehud Barak and Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni believe the goal of deterring Hamas has been accomplished.
The Gaza fighting has cut deeply into Israel's elections. In less than 4 weeks, Israelis will choose the next Knesset and Prime Minister. But because of the war, there's been very little campaigning.
Opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu is still the favorite in the elections. But although he has his quarrels with the current government, he strongly supports the Gaza operation. Speaking to the foreign press in Jerusalem Tuesday, Netanyahu called for the removal of Hamas from Gaza, and he challenged the reporters.
What would you do if your country was rocketed for a full 8 years by thousands of rockets? Because that's how long these rockets have been coming from Gaza. 8 years. 8 years are 2 U.S. presidential terms.
Netanyahu says he will continue to support the government if it works to end the Hamas rocket fire and shut down the tunnels for weapons smuggling from Egypt. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Pat, of course, the question is, can Israel put a stop and an end to Hamas?
It's unlikely, but I certainly think they need to cripple their military capabilities, and they haven't done that yet. They just can't stop short of what they would consider victory. They can't do it. because when they do, it just strengthens the Muslim extremists to come after them again with some other activity. A couple more rockets were fired out of Lebanon. The Lebanese government has restrained itself in relation to this initiative, but certainly the people in Iran want it to be escalated against Israel. Israel has to do this, but they should never have given up Gaza to begin with. And if there was anything that shows that any reasonable person that surrendering the West Bank would be folly, I mean, it's what happened in Gaza. Lee?
Pat, President-elect Obama's pick to head the Treasury Department will be facing tough questioning about his taxes during his upcoming confirmation hearings. Timothy Geithner failed to pay $34,000 in taxes several years ago when he worked for the International Monetary Fund. Still, Senate Democrats plan to press ahead with Geithner's nomination. But his tax blunder may complicate the process, and Republicans have not agreed to give Geithner a quick confirmation hearing. Pat?
Lee, I think this thing is nonsense. He worked for an international agency that did not deduct Social Security. When we work for American companies, we have Social Security taken out of our paychecks. So this is a so-called self-employment tax that the average person is not familiar with. And sometimes I have to have some professional accountant tell me, well, you had a little bit of extra money and therefore you owe Social Security on it. You don't even think about it, but you know, you don't.
Both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, seem to be saying we need this man at this time.
Oh yeah, but I mean,
his experience,
to make a big deal of this is nonsense. I mean, this really is nonsense. And any normal human being cannot be expected to stay on top of every single thing in their personal finances. You assume if you're working in America that Social Security is taken out under a particular amount of your money, and then that's it. Mm-hmm. You know, FICA, you've got it down in your pay stub. And to have some international agency where it wasn't taken out, and then all of a sudden it's self-employment, and you've got a documented worker whose documentation expires and is renewed, and I mean, this is it'll not look well for anybody to make a big deal out of this. So in any event, that's my take on Geithner. He's a good man, and I think he's very capable, and I hope he'll be Treasury Secretary.